Enterprising Engines by the Reverend W. Audrey. Read and adapted by Joshua Boston. Tenders for Henry. "I'm not happy," complained Gordon one day. "Your firebox must be out of order," laughed James, "given all that coal you had yesterday." "I'm an important engine," replied Gordon. "Important engines need plenty of coal, and hard work brings good appetite. But I doubt that you would understand that, though, James." "I know," put in Duck. "It's boiler ache. I warned you about that standpipe on the other railway, but you drank gallons." "It's not boiler ache," protested Gordon. "Of course it is," interrupted Henry. "That water's bad. It clogs up your tubes. Your boiler must be full of sludge. Have a good washout, and then you'll feel a different engine." "Don't be vulgar," grunted Gordon. He then left the shed and backed onto his train, hissing mournfully. "Cheer up, Gordon," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I can't, sir. The others say that I've got boiler ache, but I haven't, sir. I just keep thinking about the dreadful state of the world, sir. Is it true, sir, what the diesels say?" "What do they say?" "They say that they have abolished steam, sir." "Yes, Gordon, it is true." "But, sir, all my Doncaster brothers gone the same time as me?" "All gone, except one." The conductor blew his whistle, and Gordon puffed sadly away. "Poor Gordon," pondered Sir Topham Hatt. "If only we could. But maybe. Yes, I'll write to his superintendent at once." Arrangements took some time, but one evening Gordon's driver came running excitedly to the shed. "Wake up, Gordon! Sir Topham Hatt has given you a surprise! Look!" Gordon could hardly believe it. Backing towards him were two massive green tenders with an engine whose shape was very much like his own. "It's Flying Scotsman!" he cried. "Sir Topham Hatt has brought him here to see me. Oh, thank you, sir." Gordon's toot of joy was drowned out by Flying Scotsman's as he drew happily alongside. The engines were then photographed side by side the next day. "You certainly have changed much, little brother," said Flying Scotsman. "I had a rebuild at Crewe," replied Gordon. "They didn't do a proper Doncaster job, but it serves." "I had a rebuild too, but my owners said that I looked absolutely hideous and made them give back my proper shape. My owner says that I am extra special." "Is that why you have two tenders, being extra special and all?" "No. You'd hardly believe it, Gordon, but over there, on the other railway, they hardly have any coal and water." "But surely," said Gordon, "any proper railway—" "Exactly," replied Flying Scotsman. "You're lucky, Gordon, to have a controller who knows how to run railways." Everyone got along with Flying Scotsman, except for Henry. He was jealous. "Tenders are a mark of distinction," he complained. "Everyone knows that. Why has he got two?" "He's famous," explained Duck. "He was the second to go 100 miles an hour. Besides," added Donald, "the other railway has no coal or water." Sniffed Henry. "I can't believe that. I never boast," he continued, "but I always work hard enough for two. I should have another tender for that." Duck then whispered something to Donald. He was going to play a trick on Henry. "Henry," he asked innocently, "would you like my tenders?" "Yours? What have you got to do with tenders?" "All right then," said Duck. "The deal's off. Would you like them, Donald?" "I wouldn't deprive ye the honour," replied Donald. "It is a great honour," said Duck thoughtfully, "but I'm only a tank engine, so I don't quite understand tenders. Perhaps James might—" "I'm sorry I was rude," said Henry hastily. "How many tenders have you, and when can I have them?" "6. and you can have them this evening." "6 lovely tenders," thought Henry. "What a splendid sight I'll be." Henry was excited. He couldn't keep his mind off Duck's offer all day long. "Do you think it'll be all right?" he asked for the umpteenth time. "Of course," smiled Duck. "Just go where I told you, and they'll be ready for you." Meanwhile, word had gone around the island. Everyone gathered around the station to get a good view. Henry was greeted in a delightful chorus of cheers and whistles. But Henry wasn't a splendid sight at all. He had 6 tenders, yes, that was true, but they were all very old, very dirty, and filled up to the brim with boiler sludge. "Had a good washout, Henry," called a voice. "That's right. You'll feel a different engine now." Henry wasn't sure, but he thought the voice belonged to Gordon. Super Rescue. One day, Sir Topham Hatt ordered 2 diesels from the other railway for a trial. On their first night, the 2 diesels surveyed the shed. "It's time, 7101, said one, "that we took this railway over. Sus 199. It's their railway after all." "Not for long," persisted 199. "Our controller says steam engines spoil our image." "Of course we do," snapped Duck. "We show what frauds you are. Call yourselves engines? If anything happens, you care nothing for your train. You just moan for a fitter. We bring it home, if only on 1 cylinder. "Nothing," boasted 199, "ever happens to us. We are reliable." Vulgar noises greeted this. "How rude," said 199. "You asked for it," growled 7101. "Now shut up." The next day, Henry was rolling home tender first. "I'm a failed engine," he mourned. "Lost my regulator. Driver says it jammed wide open, and he can't mend it till I'm cool. However," he went on, "I've got steam, and driver can still use my reverser. But of course it would happen after Duck fooled me with those tenders. Now they'll laugh at me again." He reached a signal box and stopped, whistling for a road. Opposite the box, on the upline, stood Diesel 199 with a train of oil tankers. "Worse and worse," thought Henry. "Now old Reliable will laugh at me too." The signalman came out. "For pity's sake, take the spam can away. It's failed. The limited is behind, and all he does is wail for his fitter." "Spam can?" fumed 199. "And stow it," snapped the signalman, "or I'll take my tin opener to you. Now then." 199 subsided at this dreadful threat, and Henry pulled the train out of the way. The diesel didn't help. He just sulked. A few moments later, the limited rushed by with a growl and a roar. Henry gave a chuckle. "Look, spam can," he said. "There goes your little pal." The diesel said nothing. He had hoped that 7101 hadn't noticed. 7101 hadn't noticed. He was busy having troubles of his own. He was cross with his coaches. They seemed to be getting heavier. He roared at them, but it did no good. Engines have a pump called an injector, which draws air out of the brake pipes to keep the brakes off. If it fails, then air leaks in and the brakes come on, gently at first, then harder and harder. 7101's injector had failed. His brakes were already leaking on while he passed Henry. He struggled on for half a mile before being brought to a stand, growling furiously, unable to move a wheel. Well, did you hear what the signalman said?" chuckled Henry. "I thought they'd be laughing at me. Now the joke's on them." "Moving 2 dead diesels and their trains," said his driver thoughtfully. "That's no joke for a failed engine. Do you think you can do it?" "I'll have a jolly good try," said Henry with spirit. "Anyway, 7101's much better than old Spam Can. He did try and shut him up last night." "Come on then," said his driver. "We mustn't keep the passengers waiting." "Get moving, you!" Henry puffed the sulky diesel into motion and started to the rescue. When they arrived, Henry gently buffered up to the express, and while the two drivers talked, the fireman joined Henry's front brake pipe to the coaches. "It's better than we thought, Henry," said his driver. "The diesel can pull if we keep the brakes off. So the only wage we'll have is Spam Can's goods." "Whew," sighed Henry. "That's a mercy." He was by now feeling rather puffed. "Boop, boop. Are you ready?" called 7101. "Beep, beep." "Yes, I am. Ready as I'll ever be," replied Henry. And with 7101 growling in front and Henry gamely puffing in the middle, the long cavalcade set off for the next big station. Donald and Flying Scotsman were waiting, and they cheered as Henry puffed past. He braked the coaches thankfully, and Spam Can and the tankers trailed far behind. The passengers buzzed out like angry bees, but Sir Topham Hatt told them about Henry, so they forgot to be cross and thanked Henry instead. They called him an enterprising engine and took his photograph. They were thrilled, too, when Flying Scotsman backed down onto their train. If the conductor hadn't tactfully shooed everyone into their coaches, the train would have started later than ever. Donald took the goods. "Return 199 to the other railway," ordered Sir Topham Hatt. "I will write my views later." Henry and 7101 went away together to the works. "I'm sorry about last night," ventured the diesel. "Oh, that's all right," said Henry. "You did shut old Reliable up." "And," said the diesel ruefully, "made a fool out of myself today, too." "Rubbish," Henry replied. "A fail injector could happen to any engine. I'd lost my regulator." "You? Failed?" exclaimed the diesel. "And yet—" His voice trailed away in admiration. "Oh well," said Henry. "Emergencies, you know. Trains must get through." 7101 said no more. He had a lot to think about. Escape. One day, Edward was talking to Trevor when Douglas steamed by. He was pulling a heavy train of coal cars. "Come on, Edward," he huffed. "Stop gossiping in the sun when there's work to be done." Later, Edward spoke sternly to Douglas. "Trevor and I are old friends, and you and he have a lot in common, too." "We do?" quizzed Douglas. "And what would that be?" "Scrap," said Edward quietly. Douglas gasped. "Don't mention that word! It makes me wheels wobble!" "It does the same to Trevor," replied Edward. "He was being sent to the scrapyard, but the vicar and I managed to save him, and now he's really useful again. Even so, Sir Topham Hatt certainly does need another steam engine here." "Aye, he does, and quickly." That night, Douglas was still working. He had taken the midnight goods train to a station on the other railway. He was shunting, ready for his return journey, when he heard a faint hiss. "That sounds like a steam engine," he thought. The hissing sound came again. This time it sounded almost despairing. "Who's there?" he asked. A whisper came. "Are you Sir Topham Hatt's engine?" "Aye, and proud of it." "Oh, thank goodness. I'm Oliver. I'm here with my brake van Toad and my coach Isabel, but we've run out of coal and have no more steam." "But what are you doing?" "Escaping." "From what?" "Scrap." Douglas shivered. Then he remembered Edward's story about saving Trevor. "Then it's glad I'm here to help ye, but we must work fast. You'll have to look as if you're ready for scrap while I am taking ye away." Both crews joined in and agreed to help out, too. Everyone worked fast. They took off Oliver's side rods, wrote out transit labels, and chalked scrap everywhere they could. Douglas marshaled Oliver in front of his train. "No time to turn around," he panted. "I'll have to run tender first. Come on." "Yee-hoo! Yee-hoo!" yelled a passing diesel. "A steam is escaping! Yee-hoo! Yee-hoo!" Douglas puffed firmly on. "Take no notice," he counseled. But they were stopped before they could clear the station throat. "Aha!" called the foreman, shining his lamp on Oliver. A Western engine. His light flickered further back. A Western auto coach, and a goods brake, too. You can't take these. Can't we now? Said Douglas's driver. They're all for us. See for yourself. Douglas's conductor showed him all the labels and papers. Then the foreman looked all over Oliver, whose crew, hiding in the coach, hardly dared to breathe. Seems in order, said the foreman begrudgingly, but it is queer. Surely it is, began the conductor, but I could tell you queerer. So could I, interrupted the foreman. Right away, conductor. That was a near thing, puffed Douglas with relief. We've had worse, replied Oliver, as they forged ahead. We ran at night. Friendly signalmen would pass us from box to box when no trains were about. We got off well till Control heard about a mystery train. Then they tried to hunt us down. What did you do? A signalman let us hide on an old quarry branch. Driver, fireman, and conductor blocked the cutting with rubbish and levered one of the approach rails away. We stayed there for days with diesels baying and growling like hounds outside. I was very frightened then. Small blame to ye, said Douglas feelingly. Presently, they rumbled over the bridge and onto Sir Topham Hatt's railway. It was now daylight. We're home. They can't catch you now. Tell Isabel and Toad, please. Douglas called out the news and heard a joyful ting-a-ling-a-ling, ting-a-ling-a-ling. He was surprised. Oliver chuckled. That's Isabel, he said. There's a bell on her, you see. She's clever. When we go out together, I pull one way and push the other. When I pull, I can see ahead. When I push, I can't. So Isabel keeps a good lookout and rings her bell to talk to me. You don't say. Douglas was impressed. About this Toad, he continued. Easy, hold your wish, said his driver. Here's the works. We must slip in unbeknownst and find a place for Oliver. Douglas tried hard to be quiet, but the night foreman heard them and had to be told their secret. I know just the place, he said, and showed them an empty siding nicely hidden away. Oliver said goodbye and thank you, and Douglas puffed away. Long's an enterprising engine, he thought. I won't wait here with Donald, but I'll be feared to do anything on me own. Little Western. Douglas arrived back just in time to see Flying Scotsman take his enthusiasts home. Sir Topham Hatt said they had all been honored and thanked Flying Scotsman and his owner for their help. Please tell everyone, he went on, that whatever happens elsewhere, steam will still be at work here. We shall be glad and welcome to all who want to see and travel behind real engines. This announcement was greeted with cheers, and Flying Scotsman departed to the strains of Will Ye No Come Back Again, led, as one might expect, by Donald and Douglas. At last, Douglas could tell his news. They were all excited about it, and agreed that something must be done for Oliver. I fear, said Donald, some murdering diesel might creep in, and him there alone lacking steam even to whistle for help. You're right, said James. He won't be safe till Sir Topham Hatt knows. Douglas should tell him at once, said Gordon firmly. Is it me speak to Sir Topham Hatt? It's forwarded, think me, and me be interfering. Well, here he is, said a cheerful voice. Now what's all this about? Duck broke the awkward silence. Beg pardon, sir, but we do need another engine. I agree, Duck. That is why I am giving 7101 another chance. The engines' faces showed such dismay that Sir Topham Hatt had difficulty with his own. Sir, ventured Gordon at last, we had hoped for a steam engine, a real engine. They, said Sir Topham Hatt gravely, are rare, and unless one is saved from scrap, there's little hope. But sir, one has, burst out Donald. Yes, indeed, and thanks to Douglas, he is now at our works, announced Sir Topham Hatt. Sir, gasped Douglas, is there anything you don't know? More than you think, he laughed. Oliver's crew told me everything that you did, Douglas. Och, sigh, ye couldn't abide to see a Broadway engine and him in trouble, no more than a wheel's turn. More than a wheel's turn, I fancy. Douglas, I am pleased with you. Oliver, Isabel, and Toad will soon be ours. They are just what we need for Duck's new branch line. Loud cheers greeted this announcement. And Toad wants to be your brakeman, Douglas. Thank you, sir. I'd hoped for that. He and I will do broadly together. That, of course, made everything right. Henry spoke a good word for 7101, and the others gave him a welcome. He had good manners for a start, so Henry didn't find it hard to teach him our ways. 7101 finds them different from the other railway, but much more interesting. He is now quite a useful engine. The other engines teased him at first because of his growls. They said he was like a bear. He still growls, not because he's cross, but because he can't help it. His name Bear has stuck. He likes it. It's nicer than just a number, he says. Having a name means that you really belong. Sir Topham Hatt soon had Oliver, Isabel, and Toad mended and painted in full Great Western colors. Then he rescued 3 more Western auto coaches. 2, Alice and Mirabelle, he gave to Duck, and the 3rd, Dulcie, joined Oliver and Isabel. Duck and Oliver are happy on their new branch line. It runs along the coast to the small railway. We reopen branches, they boast. They are very proud of this indeed. The others laughed at first and called their branch the Little Western. Duck and Oliver were delighted, and now no one ever thinks about calling it anything else. And so, the Little Western, it will always be.